Thank you, Bot. So welcome everyone. It's AsyncAPI public meeting. If you're on the meeting, wherever, for the first time, it's recorded. It's going to be published to YouTube. So just keep that in mind. We cannot change that for transparency reasons with the community. We have few folks that are new to the meeting, not to the community, but some of them are at the meeting for the first time. So we always have this moment where before jumping into agenda, if you want, you can introduce yourself to the to other participants in the meeting. You can also already drop a question if you have, if you don't want to wait until the end of the meeting with your questions. You can ask them beforehand. So now that's the best moment to do it.
Okay, should I go ahead here?
Please,
yeah. All right, so my name is Simon. I'm from Germany. I do work at SAP, and I had my first experience with AsyncAPI 1.5 years ago. So we used it for some purposes, and yeah, so the reason why I joined today is because I noticed some behaviors and I raised an issue and a pull request, and this is already on the agenda, so we can talk about that later. Yeah, so any questions from your side? Anything people usually tell in the introduction?
No, so far so good. Thanks for introducing yourself. And as you said, like in your case, your topic is already on the agenda, so you're covered. Mm-hmm. Anyone else before we start? Okay, cool. So there are two topics. One is an update of progress from my side on the idea of hackathon and conference for AsyncAPI. And also the other topic is, yeah, something that Simon already introduced, like the trades topic, and also the proposal that Simon had around the around trades. The proposal is already opened, but there were some questions from the community. Don't remember the names, but basically the question, there were some questions like that people need some more explanation, and yeah, Simon came up with idea and found some time to be here on the call and introduce the topic. And I suggest we skip conference topic at the end of the meeting, because we don't know how much the trades discussion will require. And anyway, whatever we do in the topic of the hackathon and conference, it's all anyway asynchronous. It's all there are some links that I can just share if we don't have time for discussion for that. So Simon, do you want me to give you a co-host rights so you can share screen?
Yeah, that would be helpful. Thanks.
Okay. Okay, now you're a co-host, so you should be able to share your screen.
All right, can you see it?
Now, at least I can see it. And yeah, the stage is yours, so please continue.
Okay, yeah, thanks. So this issue was actually raised by a colleague of mine. It was that he discovered when we applied it at SAP that the trade behavior wasn't working as we anticipated it would work. And therefore some examples were raised here. So I think my colleague did a good job on describing how you can reproduce this and what he expected and what actually happened. And to show you this, I would like to start by going to the playground with an example and then also maybe ask you what you would expect from that. So if that's okay for you. So, all right, so we have an animals API, and there we have a bird channel, and this bird channel contains some messages. And this is a really typical inheritance example. So you have a bird, and a bird is basically using a trait that it's also an animal. And therefore, you want to reuse some properties of animals to not define it all again for birds. So for example, we have this animal trait, which is basically an abstract animal. There's not just an animal, we always have concrete instances of it. And animals have names and they have a type. And because the type isn't defined yet, it could be bird or dog in this example. And only the bird itself will take this property and override it and state, yes, I'm a bird, and I can also chirp, which the animal itself can't. So what is now the expected outcome if we apply the animal trait to the bird? And yeah, the problem is, as you can already see it in the playground, that the bird has now inherited all. So everything in the trait has overridden what we already defined in the bird. So for example, the type of the bird is not bird, it's bird or dog. And the description of the bird has even been overridden with it's an abstract animal. And I think that illustrates the, the problem we've seen with the trait behavior. So it, yeah, I would say it doesn't work like trait inheritance in other languages or what you would expect from a trait, and that actually limits our the usefulness of this feature for us. So we think trait inheritance would be really good to have. It would help us with our use cases, but the way trait inheritance works right now is not working for us and might even cause misunderstandings. So any questions around that example? So did I get everyone on board here? Or does someone disagree, or what would you have expected here?
I may clarify why is it working like this. So your example is illustrating inheritance, right? That's why it doesn't get it right. That's why right, it is reversed. So traits, it is coming from RAML. So it was inherited from RAML. So the purpose of traits was more like, compared to programming languages techniques, is more about composition than inheritance, right? So the idea is that you have bare minimum of your message and you start adding stuff. That's why whatever is on the trait is overridden whatever you have on your message. So it is, so the technique behind the traits, it's composition, it's not inheritance. Right.
Okay, I see. Yeah, but if it's composition, there shouldn't be any overwriting at all, because then, right?
I think so. Yeah, in many programming languages, when you use composition, it really replaces what was there before, right?
Okay, I see. Okay, that helps understanding why it is the way.
So for instance, I think what was the name in Python of this at whatever, can't remember. Anyway, so this is used for composition usually, that you apply on classes or on function. I think classes, you can add at whatever on top of the class, and it will modify your class by adding or removing, usually adding, I think only. Adding or replacing methods on your class or properties of your class. So it is, so the reason, so that was the ideal, let's say ideally the reason for traits, right? So you come up, so in your case, it will be like your message will be the bare minimum, right? And then you use a bird trait or a dog trait. You know what I mean? So the bird trait will contain the description a bird and chirp true or boolean or string, sorry. And then the dog trait will have I don't know, bark as boolean and a different description. But your base message doesn't even have a description at all, right? So
see, yeah, and then
it's
you
like
would
reversing.
have.
So you could actually do the same thing, but reversing the concepts, you know, more in a composition fashion than the inheritance fashion. Does it make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay. Yeah, then I maybe was thrown off because the spec states that we use the JSON merge patch behavior, which is clearly about merging objects and complex
Yes.
structures. And if you just have traits like that, you wouldn't even need to do that.
Yeah. But you have to merge. I mean, you have to, for instance,
Override
in the
at
case,
least, yeah.
Actually, yeah. I mean, we were like, for nested objects, you might want to merge, right? Or you might want to replace completely. That's why, for instance, in the case of arrays, we only we completely replace the array.
Yeah, right.
Like
and
it is not possible to merge arrays because of this. I mean, there are limitations on this language, so JSON merge patch. Like you have to choose if you want to replace arrays or merge them or what. And the risk of merging two arrays, for instance, is that you end up with duplicate keys, which might become something invalid.
Yeah, right. So that's also
yeah,
something I identified. So I agree with you here. Yeah.
So I hope that explains why it is this way. Right? I think if you want, just for illustration purposes, can you share this document with me? And I'll try to reverse this so I can illustrate what I'm talking about, just for those who are not getting it right now. It can be tricky sometimes to talk about these things.
Yeah, right. So I added it as a comment on the issue.
Okay, so sorry. So
okay. Then it would be interesting to see how it works in RAML. And it's actually interesting because I also use trait inherit. Yeah, basically the name says that I guess trait is interpreted differently depending on which project or frameworks you're using. So for example, composition could also be working without any overwriting at all, just by adding a new object in there, right? And you would never get into the situation of merging. And I've also seen frameworks where you do use traits and you do have inheritance, like object orientation, but with multiple parents, things like that. So
yeah, actually, yeah, the thing is that we have to make decisions here, like whatever it is, like I mean, maybe we can end up ideating a way to support all these possible combinations, like I don't know, like I want to do merging or completely replacing, or support merging arrays or not, but to keep it simple, because it's usually like so traits are like sugar syntax sugar, yeah, sugar syntax. So syntax sugar over AsyncAPI somehow, right? It's like so they're not really needed to create an AsyncAPI document. They're helpful, but not really needed. So that's why we didn't want to complicate so much on that. And it's like, okay, so that will be enough. Hope it helps someone, right? And but let me just work on this other.
Okay.
I'm reversing the example so I can illustrate what I'm talking about. And so I'll share my screen right now. Maybe Lucas, you have to give me host permissions.
I already gave it to you.
You're fast. So yeah, chirp. Okay, let me just. I guess it's too boring to see my face writing somewhere in the void. So I'm gonna just take all of this. So headers, blah blah blah, bird message, description. This will be a bird. This will be.
But I think I got.
Yeah, it is more. It's not so much for you, but for people who might be watching the recording later. So that's why I wanted to make it clear, right? So, or for people in the call now who are not just maybe not getting it, but not raising their hands. So, so yeah. So that will be it. Yes. So yes. So the idea here is that you have a message, bird message, that uses the bird message trait, right? And your headers are just, you know, like actually this one is not needed at all.
Yeah, you can,
right? That's it. So you will make sure that your headers are described here, right? So you use the bird message, which defines these headers, description, a bird, properties, name, type, and chirp. Required all these three. Type can be bird. You see, so we did the same. We accomplished the same thing, but reversing the approach.
Yes, except that now we have moved everything and we wouldn't have needed traits at all. So in order to make the trait useful, we would at least have to introduce an animal message. Yeah.
So the thing, so to make it more compelling, I will say, is you probably have to do it more granular, right? So
exactly, yeah.
Like with composition, right? So it is bird chirp maybe, and yeah, something like yeah. Let's just focus on chirp. So I can just come here and say something like this. Fuck, I hate this. Sorry for the for the F word. Yeah. Oh no, this is, I don't even know how to write AsyncAPI. Okay, bird chip doesn't exist. That's right. Yes. So description, it's there, it's a bird, blah, blah, blah. Okay. And then what do we do is, it might fail, I don't know, I never tried, so bear with me. So yeah, that will be it, I don't know, let's check, yeah. So now, yeah, you gotta be more granular, right? So it's like a bird message contains this bird chirp message trait, which will include the functionality of chirp, right? Actually, no, wait, it's here, so I have to read how it works. Yes. So yeah, so it is not defined here. There's nothing about chirp. Sorry. There's nothing about chirp here, but it is defined here on the bird chirp message trait, right?
But
and
now the required property will now behave interesting because you cannot ever override it again. So having the required property in the trait was actually one of the things that caused troubles for us.
Yeah, so this is problematic.
Yeah.
You either define it here or you define it here. in both cases, you'll have to be aware of this trait, and if you forget to make it required, then it's going to be problematic. So if we can have it here and remove it from here, but
that was our guidance, basically, that we shouldn't have anything in a trait which would get overwritten anyway at any point in time, but that can change over time.
Yeah, so that's the problem with traits basically right now, because you have to choose if you want to merge arrays or not, and we've chosen not to, as in JSON Schema patch, to be compliant with JSON Schema patch. Sorry, JSON patch. What was the name of this? JSON patch, right?
JSON merge patch, yeah.
JSON merge patch, yeah.
Yeah, actually, so, I think it's good that we don't merge arrays. I think the problem for us was the order of the inheritance taking place, the order of the merging.
Yeah. So, yeah, not saying that this is perfect. It is not, as you can see. It is not suitable for all use cases. So I think the proposal still makes sense. And maybe, I don't know, like it would be great to see if by converting traits to inheritance, we are actually breaking other use cases, and make sure that we're not. It will probably switch your use case, but probably it will stop serving other use cases, right? So yeah. Honestly, I don't know how to. I don't have a proposal for this. Like, I think this is one of these situations where someone has to lose, right? Or someone has to be, in disadvantage. My opinion. Maybe not. Maybe there's something I didn't realize yet. So.
Yeah, I can showcase the proposal that I created, but actually I see your point, and it's also one option that is defined here. So that it might be a good idea to not change the trait behavior like it is as of now, but then it would be good to describe how it works and how to use it safely or correctly, and what to expect here. Yeah. So
maybe. Maybe if that helps, maybe it's probably going to add more complexity. But I was thinking that maybe we could provide another mechanism that will be based on inheritance, and just so the wind don't mess things up between inheritance and composition.
Right.
It will be like it will be like one or the other. You either use traits or the new mechanism for inheritance, but not both, because otherwise this will become a chaos. Right? So I don't know, just ideas, just throwing ideas. Maybe it's a bad idea because it will increase the complexity of the spec. I don't know. We need to check the drawbacks as well. And so you show some in the ISO, you saw some examples of how it doesn't fit the current definition of traits, and even an example of how it will fit these inheritance examples. But I challenge you to do the opposite, like to challenge your proposal and see if it breaks other use cases which are not inheritance related. So like trying to abstract away from what you've seen in the past, and it's like, okay, let's come up with a use case that people might have, and see if my proposal adapts accordingly or not, because we can easily be biased. So
yeah, I can think it through, but I think it doesn't, because I used this kind of multi-inheritance in another project already, and there I used it sometimes for composition and sometimes for classical inheritance, and it did both. And the only thing you need to do is to switch the order of how it's applied, but it will break the current spec behavior. So this is technically a breaking change, and therefore I'm very wary that this is a problematic proposal here, so that it has a lot of
Well,
things to think through properly.
yeah, so don't worry about that, because I think we are approaching a major version. So so we're approaching AsyncAPI 3. I don't know when, but yeah, just with the public subscribe thing, this is going to be a breaking change. So it can be included in this same version, and then we include all the breaking changes at once and, and create chaos.
With this idea of like having something and then being able to either extend or override it, it might be worth having a look at the overlays stuff that's happening in OpenAPI. It's a little bit more like overriding individual fields, but if there's something happening there that we could build on, then it would be nice to kind of keep them as expected or predictable, as unsurprising as possible.
Yeah, so actually overlays was also taken from Grammarly, the concept of overlays. And there's an issue open, I think, for implementing overlays in AsyncAPI. And but I think it's totally different, because overlays are meant for like overlaying two different documents, right? In this case, it's about in the same document you have references. So like I would say like that when you overlay two documents, the reference of which documents to overlay, it's external. It's external to the document. While with traits, the reference is internal in the document. Like I want this to implement these traits, right? So it's, I would say like the opposite of overlay. I think they're complementary, overlays and traits. So yeah.
That's interesting. I haven't heard of that at all. Yeah.
So I think to second what Simon was saying is it would be nice to have really clear examples of what each of these areas are, because as part of the overlay discussion, and I would say the extension discussions within the OAI, there's a lot of confusion about when something would work in one. And I think there needs to be maybe a playground to go, hey, bring your ideas, and hey, that's a trait, that's an extension, that's an overlay, and then it would help people see.
Yeah, and what's happening in which case, so you really get it.
Sergio, because you raised a hand, do you want to add something?
Yeah, I use this nice feature of raising hands. Nobody knows. I discovered it right now. So I mentioned it like a few minutes ago on the chat. So we are seeing different ways of implementing this. That the overlays, I didn't know about it, and I was looking at it, and someone also suggested to merge traits and overlays on OpenAPI. There is an issue opening there. So perhaps because Fran was saying that it was completely different, perhaps there are more people that think that they can coexist. But anyway, the point is that as a short change that we could do there. So I suggested we could at least give the tooling the right behavior for whenever we parse a document and we discover fields that are duplicated in both in the trait and in the main message, to drop an error or a warning or something. Because as Lorna they say, that there are like tons of surprises there.
Yeah,
you don't know what you're gonna have there. You can more or less think what it is thanks to the editor. If you're using it online, you can see the documentation, but otherwise it's like good luck, right?
Yeah, that was really our problem, because let's say you have this trait and you have required, and now you add another message that uses a trait that did work in another case, and you don't have this trait in mind. You will never realize that you're accidentally overwriting something you didn't intend to.
Yeah, just to reply to Sergio's proposal about the warnings or errors. we're following the JSON merge patch RFC here. So, and the reason we're doing this is to comply to a specific standard, right? So to not reinvent the wheel over and over, even though it's not perfect, because then if we start like, this is like JSON merge patch, but not really, then, then when we're going to implement the parsers in other languages, people will not be able to leverage existing tooling for JSON merge patch. They will have to do their own one for the traits. So that's the disadvantage, that you will have to implement this logic yourself on the parsers. I mean, it is, to some degree, it is an excuse, and it is a valid point, what I'm saying, but to some degree it isn't, because it's like, yeah, for a user it will be like, for an AsyncAPI user it's like, I don't care, that's not my problem, I want to be clear. And again, you're pointing me to a tooling vendor or a tooling developer problem, not my problem, right? Not the problem of the user. So solve it, right? That's what the user might think, right? Yeah. So yeah, we just need to keep a balance, of course. But yeah, I just wanted to mention that this is the reason, like we try to be compliant to specific standard, right? So we don't reinvent the wheel about the same thing.
Yeah, I understand that. So I did try to implement this on my own, so you can do it with just a few lines of code. But I totally get your point, Fran. Yeah.
Which, like I said, it might be a valid point to some degree, but on the other hand, and I tend to be on the user side of things in this case, is not a valid point at all, because this is the same thing as with the same discussion, the same questions that I've been getting over and over. People say like, hey, why don't you merge OpenAPI and AsyncAPI into a single spec, or into a single document, or into a single tooling, or and we were like, no, it's going to add complexity to tooling, which is true. But yeah, but the user is like, and I mean, I understand, but it's not my problem. Again, right?
Right. So, better move the effort to the tooling than to the user. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like you're translating problems of the tooling or the people asked working on the spec to the user.
Yeah.
You're translating the problems to them. And I mean, sometimes it's needed because we cannot be handling everything. We need to be smart to when we choose which battles we want to fight. But because we can't fight every battle. But yeah, the user might probably think that, yeah, not my problem. I want to do this, and this is a pain. So yeah. So I'm saying like I'm trying to justify, not justify, like illustrate or raise awareness of why it is like it is. I'm still not happy with how it is. And I think we should keep moving forward with the proposal, maybe adjusting it a little bit, I don't know, and making sure that, or maybe as it is, but before we proceed as it is right now, the proposal that you made, to make sure that we're not actually breaking anyone else.
Yeah, that's a
understanding,
good point.
Understanding of traits, not the documents. The documents can be migrated, but their understanding of traits. Because probably nobody is complaining right now, because for them it was cool, it was perfect. But if we change it, then a lot of them will appear and say, hey, this doesn't make sense at all, right? So yeah, that's not saying we shouldn't, just we should be doing it properly, like and making sure that we don't leave anyone inside.
Okay, yeah, then I would just show you the proposal itself, and then we can later decide what to do with it. So I see your points, Fran, and maybe we need to consider adding it under a different name then, or yeah, let's see. Okay, so the actual proposal is rather simple. It's
just before you jump into proposal, Simon, one thing that I have to understand. because it might be relevant for the proposal. You mentioned a few minutes back that you experimented a bit, and you said that you tried the composition and inheritance, and in most cases, or majority of cases, it was enough to change the order.
Yeah.
What did you mean by order? Like order of applying traits in the parser, or what exactly do you mean, like changing the order? Or
exactly, yeah. So it's just a matter of, so you can even keep the merge patch algorithm. The only thing you need to change is that you apply the target object with the highest priority. So basically you keep all the merging order. So the traits are overriding each other down the line, with the exception that the target object is basically the last in the line and also overwriting what the traits are merged together. Or if you start with the target object and then every trait overrides the target object. So it's just a matter of changing the position of the target object from being the least important to the most important. That's the only change.
okay, perfect sense. Thank you.
Yeah. And then you can still use composition, but in that case, then you can use it for, then you can't override anything with a trait. So that's a use case that would then not work.
Okay, thanks. So
yeah.
You can go ahead with the proposal then.
Okay, no, that already was the proposal. So basically it's the changing the, so either we keep the algorithm because of the reason Fran mentioned, so it's already established, it's already known, we have tools and libraries around it. We just change the order, and then we get something that works like inheritance, but can also work for composition with the drawback that you can't override. But this drawback that you can't override is actually something which is a bit weird when we are using the JSON merge patch, because the whole spec of JSON merge patch is about overwriting. Yeah. And therefore, the other option would be to create a generic deep merge algorithm and not reference to a spec, and just define how merging should take place. And it's actually not that complicated, but I see that it's a drawback. So in this code example here, I will put in the link here, you could basically say it's just 2 or 3 rules. So objects will be merged recursively. I would say null is something we can skip because it only makes sense for merge patch. And then we could say everything is overwritten, including arrays. And then it's a really simple algorithm. So basically, I would even propose to simplify it like that.
So you mean even arrays will be merged?
No, overwritten. Arrays will still be
sorry.
overwritten, yeah, because okay. That I have some experience with that. That causes a lot of troubles if you try to merge them.
Yeah, especially like JSON schema can break. Like JSON schema definitions can break if it finds the same item on an array twice, right? It can be can be problematic.
But with this behavior, we wouldn't have that much problems with the required array, because I can always override it. And then at the end, after applying all my inheritance, I might already know what is required and not, and then I can define it at the latest point in time, and it will not get overwritten again. But after your explanations, I understand understand now much better why you chose the merge patch than before our meeting. Okay. Yeah, right. So that's already it from my side. So
so do you mind explain? You were saying like if we reverse it, reverse the order, right? You can still do like composition, right?
yes, but you
I'm trying to imagine how this will work, but I can't.
Yeah. So when I was doing composition, I was always thinking this will get an own object that is the composite, and this is merged in, and if you do composition, you will never run into a merging situation, because like in a programming language, you just add in another whole object or class into your existing class, and there's no merging problem at all.
Yeah, it's completely replacing.
I see Michael raised the hand. Can you do want to?
Yeah, I was making a comment. This is a great discussion, by the way, an important one in the chat, which is these seem to be in direct conflict, these two use cases, right? Whether you want to do the merge or you want to use the inheritance. And so what I've seen done in the past in other contexts is you have default behavior, right? But then that can be overridden if needed. And so maybe the example that was originally shown, if you don't explicitly have a custom field called overrides or something in the message, the type property will be overridden by the traits. That's the default behavior in accordance with the JSON patch. However, if AsyncAPI then offered like in a backdoor or a way to say, no, I really know what I'm doing. I want this specific field or set of fields to not be overwritten by any trace. Then you could also satisfy the inheritance use case. But unless you have some sort of backdoor in the actual as a top level field, I don't really see how you can support both of these use cases with one default behavior. But maybe I'm misunderstanding something. Yeah.
So Fran mentioned something interesting. You could we could keep the trait behavior, and we could have an extend behavior, and then we have message extend, and then you can choose either to use the extend or the trait behavior.
Yeah, that gives you the most control, but it's also the most cumbersome. So I think keeping the default behavior as it is does make sense to me, but again, maybe I'm biased. I would expect the bird and dog array to override. But this is a valid use case, right? I think this inheritance pattern, so we need to support it, like was mentioned earlier. Like they don't care, the users don't care. They just want to be as expressive as they can. And so I think we should just discuss. In the short term, we can talk about just updating the docs and making it clear the default behavior. But long term, this seems like a valid use case that we should support somehow.
Yeah,
so mine was just one suggestion.
Yeah, the only downside that I see of like picking which fields might get overridden and which don't is that this part of like type, object, description, properties, this is not AsyncAPI. So this is JSON schema. We don't control this spec. So it might have to be done using extensions, which is like X dash whatever, and then it becomes a custom behavior that not the core spec behavior, right? But something that an extension that some tooling might or might not support. So,
yeah, that's a good point. It's a pretty serious trade-off in terms of adoptability.
It just comes to my mind. There's one other thing that I noticed when implementing a validator for this. So we also need to define the order of when the dereferencing takes place. So I think we had some discussions, and I looked at the playground, how it was implemented. but it also makes a difference to the inheritance behavior if you resolve $references before or after making the inheritance. But I think after thinking through it, it's quite obvious that you dereference first. But this is something we probably should define as well.
Yeah, like the referencing is right now like a fuzzy land right now on the spec, because we are allowing people to use $ref even in places where it shouldn't be allowed, because
okay.
because the parser is using a tool like JSON ref parser, I think, or JSON Schema
I
ref
used
parser.
that one as well. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's just taking all the $refs and the referencing, and then once we have the whole document, then we validate it.
Exactly. Yeah.
So that's why you can use $ref where you shouldn't be able, because we validate after they have been dereferenced. So yeah, it looks like that will also be defined at some point, like where you can use $ref and where you can't, and the order of the referencing. And like you said, like if we're gonna dereference before applying traits or after applying traits, right? So yeah, I agree with that. And I just want to throw something here that I've been like chatting about with Jonas the other day, and more and more people. And it's like maybe the whole situation that we're facing right now, like we want to do this or that, and it's becoming like quite complex already. The amount of use cases that we have to support, maybe the whole problem comes from the language itself, right? Like being YAML or YAML-based language. So,
yes.
But yeah, like this is just like for anyone who wants to think about it. I don't want to start another conversation about it now, but yeah, like I was just for reference, I've been playing with the idea myself of how an AsyncAPI document could look like with something like GraphQL syntax or similar, or TypeScript syntax or similar, something like that. Not TypeScript, but TypeScript types. I mean, not the whole language, or GraphQL syntax, something like that. Yeah, and exactly, Michael. So something like a DSL, and that could probably then be transformed to JSON behind the scenes. But the user will not have to deal with these complex JSON structures, and instead they will deal with simple DSL. But that's again, just wanted to mention it, but that's another discussion, and it might not ever happen at all. So yeah.
Yes, now that you mention it, so I totally can understand your point, because YAML itself is a beast already, and you have already inheritance in YAML. Yeah, right. So and at some point in time, you have to choose if you leave a problem to preprocessors or to generators, and keep the complexity out of the spec itself. Okay, that's, yeah. Would that work here? So you can an amp. Yeah, I don't have it right out of the box, but you know what I mean. So you can.
You can't use these features. So it is explicitly stated on the spec, like you can only use the subset of YAML that can map to JSON.
Okay. Yeah.
Because in the end, what you're using YAML, but we're transforming everything to JSON behind the scenes. So,
yeah, that makes sense. That simplifies it.
I love when I mentioned something geeky like a new DSL or something like that, and then it's like everyone is like, yeah, let's go ahead, like let's change everything, let's break the whole thing.
Yeah, but this will break a whole ecosystem of tools and parsers and
Yeah.
JSON schema validation, code intelligence.
Yeah, we probably wouldn't be able to use JSON schema itself. So, and so
Yeah.
So yeah.
You went off the proposal quite a bit. So what? So you're gonna update the proposal with the use cases, right?
Sorry, Lucas, can you repeat again?
Yeah, just to summarize the discussion. So because like during the meeting we're only discussing, we're not making any decisions, obviously.
Yeah.
Especially this because the recording has to be shown to others. So like the outcome from today is that you basically will provide some more examples, right? On the proposal, or you will think through if you even want to go forward with it.
Yeah, so I think I already have the examples in here and a code example how to change it. But what's new to me is the understanding of that we might want to actually keep the overwriting behavior, and then maybe we should think about how those, if they could coexist, or how they complement each other, and what the basically the drawback of this proposal is compared to the override. So what use cases would we break, like Fran mentioned? Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can add that.
Also,
well,
Lucas, maybe you want to, or maybe we can, I don't know, like try to ping the community as much as possible for those, especially for those who are using trades heavily, and see if it will break their use case. Maybe it doesn't. So, and maybe they're having the same problems as Simon was having, and then it makes sense to change it, and that's it.
I mean, that's what we already did. That's why we have this call, because after triggering community, some voices came up in the proposal. So I suggest, like, I mean, Simon, you're the champion for the proposal, so it's up to you how to proceed. So just after the call, think about the proposal, what we discussed, and update us on the PR. Take time, because I can assure you that holidays is not the best moment to engage with the community. Like we have a great article from Jesse that we could publish on AsyncAPI, and I'm just blocking him to not do it because we're gonna lose the opportunity to get good audience, because I can see on Google Analytics everything's like everyone is out on holidays, like everyone literally. So take your time, because like even that we tried hard to engage with the community and some people jumped in, I think that much more people will jump in September. So just take time to rethink it, what you want to do for what with the proposal.
Okay, yeah, thanks. I will do that, and it's not something I think that we should hurry.
Definitely. I mean, the release schedule is September, and then it's January, and even like for September, it's already I would say too late, because you have to provide implementation as well. So I mean, I'm not deciding here, but just like being like objective. Like it would be super hard looking on the load that we have, and for now it's just me and Fran accepting changes. So yeah, it's just take it into consideration. Like, but as you already aligned with us, like you're not in the rush as well. So.
Yes, exactly. The only thing I would consider is to collect issues that ask for a major breaking change in the spec, because yeah, when thinking about it, technically it's not a breaking change to add a new behavior, but for the tooling it is a breaking change, because if the tooling doesn't support the new behavior, it will not work for what users intended with the spec.
Yeah, at the end, it depends how we do it. If we change the behavior or just add something, then
Yeah.
with the new version parsers, we'll have to follow up.
Okay, but you don't plan to release a 3.0 release in September? Okay.
No.
Yeah, we have
it.
Yeah. We have it ready, like it's on the line, like it's gonna take everybody by surprise, like surprise, and the DSL as well, the new DSL. That would be amazing. Not good.
I'm already predicting that, like in the future September release window, it's always going to be like super minor things, like some binding, new binding or something that is not really complicated, because I mean, like, we have to respect the community and like not engage. Like, we even had one person engaging with us and pushing the bindings on holidays. So we definitely have to, while being on holidays, so we definitely have to make sure we respect community and don't force too much big decisions in this time. Okay, so 1 minute until the end. Conference and hackathon.
Quickly.
Yeah, for this quickly, by the way, not sure if in other countries you have it. In Poland, you have this law that when there's a commercial of medicine, at the end of the commercial in radio, somebody has to read the side effects. And like those people reading the side effects, they're like masterpiece. Like the speed they do it, I'm not gonna able to do the same update about conference. So just from my side, link to discussion in community repo, where we have few topics that we discuss about the conference. It's for sure gonna happen in November, hackathon October. And the new thing is that is not yet mentioned it there by me. I have to put some updates. Is that I had some discussions with the Linux Foundation, because AsyncAPI is now based part of Linux Foundation. Some of the tooling we can get from them for free, some of them paid. But yeah, that's what we will have sponsorship for, and it's gonna make our lives easier. But let's then continue asynchronously in the discussion stuff. Thanks a lot to all of you for joining, especially to you, Simon, for preparing the discussion and explaining everything well. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, thanks for inviting me.
And yeah, it's end of the day, at least for Europe.
Thank you.
Good luck, team. See you in 2 weeks in the APAC-friendly time zone.
You're on.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Thank you. Bye-bye.